the thing that is most typically associated with the internet age and digital communication is the greater concept of participatory culture. We've mentioned that in passing before, especially through Henry Jenkins, who is the kind of originator of the idea for the internet age. And the grander context that exists in this week's reading kind of points to the idea of kind of engagement, the idea that political conversation on social media makes people are more engaged because they have more ways to engage, that you can talk to your representative, you can email them, you can get updates from whatever they are, obviously is a very big step up in the ways that people are becoming involved in this whole idea of politics. And participatory culture, in this case, kind of seems to have a role in combining people with their weird political ideals. This slide here kind of summarizes the aspects of participatory culture as they are formulated by Henry Jenkins. So it starts with relatively low barriers to artistic expression and civic engagement, strong support for creating and sharing one's creations with others, some type of informal mentorship whereby what is known by the most experienced is passed along to novices. Members believe that their contributions matter. Members feel some degree of social connection with one another. At least they care about what other people think about what they have created. And so in this case, of course, if you extend that to the world of politics, and certainly, so this being written in 2009 kind of predates the modern sense of social media as we understand it, although there was already Facebook and MySpace and whatever. The idea that participatory culture could locate people within some kind of a civic engagement or a civic organization of some sort, which would target people through some kind of political action, would certainly get to the idea that eventually people would contribute to their political group, to their political entity, or whatever it is, and eventually become engaged actively in their civics or politics. And of course, in the modern sense, that means what is typically called engagement. Engagement being whether or not people are seeing those messages, whether or not people are responding with those messages. And of course, today engagement has a very different meaning with the Web 2.0 or 3.0 now version of the internet compared to what it was in the 2000s. But the simple idea that you can create a political message or create a political imagery, and that being plastered in many places, visible by others, maybe reposted, retweeted, makes that a very powerful sense of politics, of course. And a lot of that is visible through Barack Obama's campaign in 2008. So right around the time that Jenkins is writing, because as many people observed, Obama had spent a lot more than Mitt Romney in his online campaign, going through Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus, which has now disappeared, even having a lot of viewers on his YouTube channel and on the budding Instagram platform. Twitter, I guess, was already 1 year or 2 years old, but it was also pretty new. So the amount of people that the Obama campaign was able to reach through social media was kind of seen as the kind of the decisive point in that election compared to whatever Romney did. Now, of course, you can argue that they have kind of a skewed participation bias, if you will, because obviously younger crowds would be more receptive to Barack Obama's campaign, would be more likely to be on the internet rather than older crowd, conservative crowd, which would be much less likely in 2008 to be on social media platforms. But the idea remained that, of course, the internet might be able to change the course of elections, and that in and of itself is not particularly new either. The example being the Subcomandante de Marcos in Chiapas, South Mexico in 1994, when he published most of his communiques on his website and kind of making the rest of the world aware of his fight against the neoliberal government of Mexico, and really with the general context of world politics in that time. This is an article right there from 1998 that analyzes this impact of the internet on the Zapatistas or Marcos's efforts. The most dramatic organizational efforts in which the internet has played a central role are the joint cooperative effort between the Zapatistas and other social movements linked to them. These efforts have included the organization of large-scale meetings as response to the January 1996 Zapatista call for continental and intercontinental quote-unquote encounters to discuss, among other things, contemporary global neoliberal capitalist policies, methods for elaborating a global framework of opposition to those policies, and formulas for interconnecting various projects for elaborating alternatives. The result of these organizing efforts included a series of continental meetings in the spring of 1996, an intercontinental meeting in Chiapas in the summer of 1996, and a second intercontinental meeting in Spain in the summer of 1997. Through extensive emails and a small number of intermittent face-to-face meetings, possible approaches to the organization of discussion were debated, agendas were hammered out, and logistical arrangements were made. The results were stunning. Thousands came to the continental meetings, 3,000 to the intercontinental meeting in Chiapas, and 4,000 to the intercontinental reunion in Spain. Grassroots activists from over 40 countries and 5 continents attended both intercontinental meetings. And of course, 3,000, 4,000 people today doesn't seem like a whole lot. And much more largely, the awareness that you may or may not have of Marcos and the Zapatistas in the 90s kind of is a much larger testament of what this article is publishing here. Of course, that there was an impact in the short term, as people knew, but the situation today for Mexico, for indigenous people in Mexico especially, has not changed a whole lot. You might hear these days what is happening in Chiapas with motorcycle gangs of drug dealers essentially terrorizing the population. So however much this seemed like a change for the better at the time, the long-term effects have not really paid themselves off. The larger idea has become more trodden by those larger social media campaigns that became popular in the middle of the 2000s. Kony 2012 or hashtag Bring Our Girls Back or Bring Back Our Girls for a group of Uganda, Nigerian girls. I forget now. But essentially kind of social media campaigns that were brought to awareness through either these posters, by the way, a pastiche of the Obama campaign posters, and through Michelle Obama kind of advertising the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls, making the larger, oh yeah, Kony was in Uganda, so the girls are in Nigeria. I get it now, sorry. And so the larger context for this is the development of these awareness campaigns where people are able to connect through other people who share the same goals through hyperlinks, and those hyperlinks that are exemplified by the hashtags, that if you click on the hashtag, you are able to see the other people who are passing either the same message or hopefully have the same idea as you do. In the Kony 2012 context, this was part of an organized group based in the United States, kind of seeking to bring awareness to the escaped president of Uganda at the time, trying to bring awareness about child soldiers being used by these groups in Uganda, and kind of allowing people to exchange on the subject that up until that point had been very much kept quiet. So the idea that you can connect with others who share your ideas, share your position, or are aware of the same thing as you do by clicking a hyperlink seemed to be a way to, again, raise awareness of specific issues. Now, the larger idea that we can get to this is an idea of numbers, of course, because there's this idea that you reach a critical mass or a tipping point where you have enough people being aware of this idea, this hashtag, this issue in the world, and this becomes a much larger issue as a result of it. The same idea exists in the context of the 51% attacks that we have talked about in Bitcoin, and perhaps another form of 51% attack that exists in online polls that have been open over the years on the internet. This is from a Time article about the Time 100, kind of a poll that used to be published by Time magazine to elect the person of the year. So this article points out, look closely at Time magazine's online voting results so far, the Time 100, and you will see at the top someone called Moot, aka 21-year-old Christopher Poole, the founder of 4chan, the notorious online bulletin board where hackers like to hang out. Not only did Moot's followers manage to get his name in a top 100 readers list, they also manipulated the next 20 spots. If you take the first letter of each name, it spells out the cryptic message, Marble Cake, also the game. See the image below that kind of explains that. Update according to a tip, Marble Cake is also the name of a chat room where Project Chanology was born, 4chan's war against Scientology. This is an article, as you can see, dated from the late 2000s. This is not a new thing, of course, but this is essentially a 51% attack, right? This is just a bunch of people who participated in a poll which would not have otherwise have seen their engagement. And once you get a group of people to participate in a poll, you just need them to gain the majority of the votes. And from that point on, it is very easy, especially on the internet, to just change your identity and create more polls, more participation, and kind of gain control of that poll. Now, if you know anything about 4chan, or if you know anything about the history of the world, Marble Cake is a thing that you are supposed to Google in this case, and the journalist that participated in this particular article fell for another joke saying that Marble Cake is in the name of a Scientology thing. That is not the case. If you look at Urban Dictionary currently, the top definition for Marble Cake also has the same idea. As you can see, this thing is dated from April 15, 2009. The article before that was dated from April 21st, 2009. So this Marble Cake definition in Urban Dictionary points out the first anonymous video message to Scientology and the first three themes for the protest were cooked up in a collective that has become known as Marble Cake. Because one of the names for the RSC channels they used, opinions for this group vary widely. Some consider them a sinister, secretive cabal bent on controlling anonymous. Others, including participants, portray them as simply a creative collective who brainstormed and came up with the good ideas and then adopted at large on their own merits because they were good ideas. Critics of the Marble Cake group, on the other hand, accuse MC of astroturfing and using sock puppets to manufacture support for their ideas. Leader blanking, because there's a slur right there, and otherwise behaving bad in a variety of ways, with the answer, who is Marble Cake, and the author of this particular article being not Marble Cake. Now, if you look at this Urban Dictionary page, and I do not recommend that you do, there's another definition for the same word that includes something about a sexual act that you would not want to read about in your daily life unless you think this is fun. And sure, people on 4chan seem to think this is fun. The other part of the answer, Marble Cake, also the game. The game is a internet meme of some sort. This is a game that is based on another pre-existing game on the internet, but has found its way to the internet called the game. Rule one on the game is that you are playing the game. You, along with everyone else in the world, always is, always has been, and always be playing the game. Neither awareness nor consent is required to play. Rule 2 of the game, every time you think about the game, you lose. Loss is temporary. As soon as you forget about the game, you stop losing. The objective of the game is to forget that it exists. Good luck. Rule 3, loss of the game must be announced. Every time you think about the game and hence lose, you must say so. This is the only rule that can be broken, but do you really need to cheat? And of course, in this case, having the mention of the game in the Time 100 poll makes you lose the game, and now the game is for you to not think about the game anymore. So this is a mind game. This is something where you are supposed to not think about the game. If you are aware of the game, then you lose. If you are no longer aware of the game, then you win, unless you are reminded of the game. This is, again, something that has been existing at least since the 1970s, where the similar idea is to bring up a word, and if you mention the word, then you lose the game. This is typically a game that is played within small groups, but has found a renewed interest on the internet, because if you are using this idea that you can spread a word through the internet, then you are able to lose the possibility of people being aware of the game, or, again, unaware of the game. So right here, in a nutshell, you have this idea of participation in a group or in an effort that might be a little bit bigger than what you think it is, in the context of you are participating in a game, whether or not you are aware of it, and yet you can be losing this game because you are not aware of it. And once again, we are getting back to the idea of code that we have mentioned previously, right? Being aware that there's a game called the game that exists makes you aware that you have lost the game as it is described according to this website. Similarly, not being aware that there's a game called the game, i.e. reading the slide a couple of slides ago from Time Magazine, looking at Marble Cake, also the game, makes you think about, well, nothing, makes you unaware of what it is. So there is very much an in crowd that is available to understand what is a specific code. There is also an out crowd of people who do not know what the codes are. And of course, they will have different levels of appreciation of what the game is, just like they will have different appreciation of what Marble Cake is.